I'm sure we can do.
All right, message me because I gotta get home so I can do my virtual.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well on this Tuesday afternoon. I'm Brian Davenport. I will be your presenter for today. I'm a public health specialist too with the Kansas City Health IQ team here at the health department. I want to thank you all for spending your time with us today. Day two of our 4 days of Health Miss. Um, we are going to make this as fun and as interactive as possible for you. So feel free at any point in time to put questions, comments, concerns in the chat. You can feel free to ask questions at any point in time. If you need me to reiterate something, better explain something, please let me know. Keeping with our time, we're going to go ahead and get started. And I have a quick question that I am posting now that I want each of us to take a look at and to give yourself a rating. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I need help and resources right now, and 10 being I'm good and carefree, how would you rate your mental health today? Just today. You can put your answers in the chat. You don't have to elaborate if you don't want to, but on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your mental health today? All right, I see some people jumping in with their responses. All right, I got a 6, I got a 7, I got a I'm good. Okay, what number would you give it though? 1 to 10. All right, a 7.5. We got an 8. That's good. That's not bad. For a lot of people, this time of year is a little stressful. And so some of these higher numbers are really, really good to see. But make sure you're being open and honest with yourself. So if that's not really where you're at, you can be honest with yourself and say, hey, I'm not there yet. You might not put it in the chat, but that's all right. All right. So good. So we're gonna, like I said, I'm with the Kansas City Health IQ program here at the health department. And one of our things that we do is we provide trainings, workshops, things like that for our community members to build resiliency and capacity, to help you better understand and know so that we can live better, healthier lives. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen for you all so you can see the presentation. Um, All right. If you can see the screen in the chat, just put a 1. If you cannot, put a 0 for me. 1 if you can, 0 if you cannot. All right. Thank you, Armando. All right. So we're going to go through this again. Feel free to ask questions, whether out loud, via the chat, however you feel comfortable. There's no wrong questions here. There's nothing that you can ask that either we don't have a resource for or we don't know the answer for here. But this is your opportunity to ask and make sure that you're getting the information that you need. So we're going to dive right in with our mental health matters. So ask yourself real quick, what do you know about mental health? We know that for some of us, certain levels of it, for some of us, we deal with it more intensely than others, but give yourself a second and ask yourself, what do you really know? So what do we need to know about it? What is mental health? A lot of people don't know truly what it is. Who can be affected? Sometimes our viewpoint on that one can be a little misconstrued. So we're going to look at that part and then how it can affect you. And then by the time we get to the end of this one, we'll know some signs of what it looks like. We'll know some activities that we can do to help ourselves, whether in the moment or over time. And we'll also have some resources for you. Um, some that'll be on here. There will be also be some that I will talk about a little bit more in detail that aren't on the presentation as well, but making sure that you have the right connections. All right, so what is mental health? Mental health is how we feel, think, and act. It also helps us determine how we handle stressful situations, how we relate to others, and the healthy choices that we make. So I want you to think about this one. Are you the person that prefers to be away from the group at work, or are you the people person that you can get along with any and everybody? Don't answer that out loud, but think about it for yourself. Now, think about when things are stressful in your life. How do you handle it? Are you calm, cool, and collected? Or are you too calm, where you're dismissive of it? Or does it kind of make you shut down? Do you not handle it well? Those are the types of things that you want to be able to answer for yourself and that you want to think about when you're talking about your mental health. And then what types of choices do you make with how you handle that stress? Are you a person that, hey, happy hour is my go-to that helps me calm down and relax? Is it other remedies or substances that you may use? Or is it sometimes, hey, I go and do prayer, I meditate, I do yoga. So those types of choices play into our mental health and are affected by it. So we have to start to think about those types of things. Throughout this, I'm going to have a running scenario that I'll refer back to just as an example. That way, everybody can kind of understand where I'm coming from with it. So when we're looking at mental health, it includes our emotional, our physiological, and our social well-being. A lot of times we think of our emotions, but we don't think about sometimes the physical effects, or sometimes we think about the physical, but we don't think about socially. Hey, maybe I'm not an introvert or an extrovert. Maybe it's my mental health at that time and how I see things or how I'm dealing with it that make me want to be around people or not be around people. So we have to consider those factors. All right, mental health affects us all. Now, I use these pictures very specifically for a reason. A lot of the times, with us being adults, we think about it from an adult standpoint, but we don't always think about for our youth. It's becoming more and more of an issue nowadays that we're seeing more violence in schools and things like that. But sometimes we really need to break down and look at how it's truly affecting our kids. So, what are my odds? Now, I know one of our groups that is on here is actually multiple people at the same computer. So, this actually works perfect for you. If you're in an office or a cubicle by yourself, just think about the people that sit around you in this one. So, we're going to make things make sense. So, more than half of the people on this call will experience a mental health illness in their lifetime. So, we have 9 people on here, is what this is showing. So, half of you will experience a mental health illness. I'll say half of us because I'm included in that 9. 1 in 5 Americans will experience a mental health illness every year. So, again, there's 9 of us. You do the math. If you're sitting around other people, consider, hey, how many people are around you? Let's make that make perspective for you. 1 in 5 children have had a seriously debilitating mental illness. So that's a lot higher than what most people know or think of. And 1 in 25 Americans live with a serious mental illness, such as schizophrenia, bipolar, or depression. So, what does all those things mean in context? There's 9 of us. One of us may have a seriously debilitating illness. So I'm just going to pull at random because I know these people. Sorry, Connie, you have major depression. Sorry, that's just how it falls. 1 in 5 that will experience a mental illness. Sorry, Maria, it's going to happen for you today. But it's all right though. It's not the end of the world. Let's see. Armando. Sorry, you're going to be diagnosed with schizophrenia. Happens. But it's all right though, because we're going to talk about what we can do to help ourselves in those moments when things are rough. Go ahead, Armando.
I'm okay. I think that I can handle it.
Okay, good. That's what I like to hear. Now, I know that's a lot of numbers, but real quick, here's that interactive part. If that makes sense to you, put a 1 in the comment. If it doesn't and you need a little more explanation, just put a 0. So 1 if it makes sense, you got the idea. 0 if you need me to explain a little bit more. Let's see. Who's going to be the first one to answer in the chat? All right, cool. Thank you, DeAndre. It makes sense to you. And these are numbers that are reported by the CDC. So let's dive a little bit deeper. How it can affect our children. Mm. Now, I know as a parent, I have 4 girls. Yes, I'm a girl dad. Absolutely. They had me around their finger. So when seeing some of these things, especially as my children are getting older, it makes a lot of sense in some of the things that I see. Also being a former teacher, a lot of it made sense when I started seeing some of these signs. Now, remember, these are not the only signs that you may see, and you might not see every sign. But here's what I want you to do interactively. For each one of these that I read off, if it's your child or a child that you've seen, know of, give a point on your finger for each one that I name. So here we go. Possible effects. You can see frequent outbursts. So if you know a child that does that, yours or not yours, give a point. Changes in school performance. Now, this can go both ways. This could be you have a straight A student that now suddenly their grades are falling off, or you could have a kid that's not doing so well and suddenly they're the rock star in the classroom. So give a point. Loss of interest in friends or activities. So the example I normally give for this one is you got a kid that's really great at a sport or a hobby, and all of a sudden now it's I don't want to do it anymore, so I quit the team, or it just wasn't fun, so I left. Give a point. Not able to handle daily problems and tasks. So I don't mean your kid that's oh okay, I'll get to the dishes later, mom, and later maybe 4 or 5 hours later. No, I mean like they struggle with something simple, a task like writing their name, something that they could do every day. It becomes a struggle and a hassle, and they get frustrated by doing it. So that's what we're looking at. So again, if you know a youth like that, give a point. Spending more time alone. Yeah, sometimes it's all right to have your space, but even when we're having fun and playing games, this child decides, hey, I just don't want to be around anybody. I'm going to seclude myself. I'm going to voluntarily go and be away from everyone else. Give a point. And of course, the obvious one that a lot of people know of and think of instantly is drug or alcohol abuse. So tally up your points. You don't have to tell me, but that's just more so for you to know. My rule is if you notice or have 3 or more fingers up, conversations potentially need to be had. Again, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist by any stretch of the imagination, but these are just some of the things to be aware of, especially as they get older. Now, a lot of it sounds like, oh, well, my child's a teenager and they exhibit some of these. And that's just teenage behavior. Sometimes it is, but when you ask questions, you'll find out whether or not if it's really teenage behavior or if it's, hey, there's something deeper going on here that we might want to address. So let's look at it for adults. We're going to do the same experiment for adults. So if this is you or someone that you know, give a point to yourself. You can hold it down under the desk if you want to. You don't have to broadcast what your score is. So changes in mood. You frequently change your mood. You're okay 1 minute and 5 minutes later, you're ready to storm out of the building. Erratic thinking. This one I like to say is the overly conscious person. The You're driving in the car and your brain instantly goes to, oh my God, this car is going to cut us off and we're going to hit the median and we're going to crash and we're going to flip over and we're all going to burn and die. Erratic thinking. So give yourself a point if that's you or you know someone. Chronic anxiety. This one is hard for a lot of people. Um, there are a lot of people that deal with anxiety. When we say chronic, we mean, okay, this happens potentially multiple times a day, multiple times a week, not just the random anxiety, but ones that are a little more frequent. Impulsive actions. Hey, you decide today that you're going to go and jump out of a plane because it looked like fun and you saw it on TV. Let's go do it. And you're not that person. That could be a sign. Exaggerated self-worth. Now, we know people that are selfish or people that are overly confident, but we really mean you're going over the top. This is the person that you might know of that decided, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and buy a Lamborghini today, and I'm gonna go take all the pictures under the sun with it, just so you know what I have. when you're more of the Geo Metro paycheck type person. Just saying. That might be a bad example. Some of you might not know what that car is, but that's the example I went with. And then, of course, again, the abuse of drugs and alcohol. So tally up your score, think about it to yourself. We don't need to know. Again, I still give the 3-point rule. If you have 3 or more fingers up, you might potentially have to have a conversation to see what's going on just to get down to it. Is there anyone brave enough to tell us if you have a 3 or more? And it doesn't have to be for yourself. It could be for thinking about other people. Anybody gets a 3 or more when they thought about these? And you can put it in the chat or you can unmute. And this applies also for the youth one as well. Okay, not a problem.
I think I can think of a couple of people,
Okay.
even children.
Mm-hmm.
I know that my grandson gets kind of anxious when his parents are anxious or say they're having a disagreement or something, and
Mm-hmm.
it really affects children more, I believe. Um, well, sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what's going on, if they think perhaps their parents aren't getting along and they don't know what's going to have what the outcome is going to have on them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Thank you, Connie. I appreciate that. And it does have some harsher effects the younger you are. And not harsh as in you're gonna have more outrageous behavior, but harsh in the sense of it doesn't always become noticeable to those that are around you, so you deal with it longer. And the person may or may not understand it or know that it potentially has affected them. So those types of things, that's why I say if you're at 3 or more, that's a conversation. Just start asking questions to figure out and see if this is something that's really a mental illness or is this something that's just that person's personality. So there's nothing wrong with that. Never want to diagnose because we're not medical professionals to be able to do that, but there's nothing wrong with asking questions and being inquisitive. So moving ahead, fight, flight, or freeze. So here's my story time. Being a former teacher, um, I had a situation with one of our students during lunch. Um, the student was typically very, very quiet. She's a younger student. I believe she's like a third or fourth grade young lady. Very quiet, always very polite, never an issue, nothing like that. Well, one day we're at lunch. Everybody is being themselves, nothing out of the normal. She gets up screaming, yelling, runs out of the cafeteria. So I follow her to go talk to her, try to figure out what's wrong with her. And she's in the hallway, curled up in a ball, sobbing. I'm standing over her, asking, "What's wrong? Why are you yelling and screaming? What's the problem? What's the problem?" I'm going to pause right there. There are a couple things that were wrong with that one. So, in the chat, based on what I just told you so far in the story, what mistakes did I make? There's no right or wrong. I just want to see if you caught them. So, you can put it in the chat based on what I just said. What mistakes do you think I made in dealing with this situation so far? While you put that in the chat, let's read over Fight, Flight, Freeze. So, our experiences in life can trigger how you respond to different words, sounds, and people, also smells. The most common reactions are to fight, run away, which is flight, or shut down, which is freeze. So I see some people putting in the chat, where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong by following this young lady and approaching her and asking her why she's screaming and yelling and crying and all these things? What do you say? Where did I go wrong? And I promise my feelings won't be hurt. Or you can unmute yourself. That is fine as well.
yeah, can you repeat the situation, please?
I sure
Come
can.
on, come on here.
So
We had
this,
something. I'm
okay.
not sure if you can hear us over here, Brian.
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, somebody's gonna come in and state their response to the scenario.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
Hey, Mr. Brian.
Hello, hello.
How are you? I was just want to say like it really depends on like my mental capacity for the day when I'm dealing with client guests, depending on if I want to fight, flight, or freeze.
Okay.
And I don't know. I just what ways can I really? I don't know. Try to determine what I want to do.
Or it's being capacity.
Okay.
Yeah, or respond properly to where I don't want to do anything. I say, oh, I just need to time out and I'll come back.
Okay. And we'll get to that. So I appreciate your question on that one. And I will definitely make sure that I come back and answer that one. I did hear Connie ask for me to repeat the scenario, so I'm gonna repeat it real quick. So we're at lunch. One of the students that I frequently know of and deal with on a daily basis, who's normally very calm, mild-mannered, easygoing, out of nowhere gets up, screaming and yelling, runs out of the cafeteria. I follow her, find her in the hallway, curled up in a ball, crying. I stand over her and I ask her repeatedly, "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" In what I just told you, what things did I do wrong with dealing with that situation?
Stand up for her for me.
Okay, standing over her, yes. What else do we have? Armando?
I think that the first question that you need to ask is, are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
Before asking her what's wrong, right? I don't know.
Exactly. Yep, I led with the wrong question. I stood over her. What else?
I would say maybe take her to a separate area where maybe all the other kids aren't looking or can't
Hmm.
hear what's going on.
Okay, so I addressed the issue in a public place. And remember, we're dealing with a third or fourth grader. So
Hmm.
public embarrassment could be a trigger for some kids.
Oh yeah.
We have one more response over here.
Okay.
I would definitely say maybe just kind of helping her breathe, because in order for her to tell you what's going on or what's wrong, she needs to stop crying and calm down. So
Hmm. I didn't give her any time. I just pursued and immediately started asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
So, all of those things, I would agree. Those were wrong approaches to that situation. At the time, I didn't see it that way. Now that I'm older and I know a bit more, it changes how I deal with it. So, in that situation, yes, pursuing her was the right thing to do to make sure that she's okay, to make sure she wasn't running into any danger or endangering anybody else. That was the first correct thing I did. Where I went wrong, standing over her. Remember, she's on the floor, curled up in a ball, crying. For a lot of you, you don't know me, so I'm gonna set the scene. I'm 6'2", so I'm standing over a child that's on the floor. That can be very intimidating. So think about that when you're dealing with anyone, a child, an adult, your proximity. How close are you to them? Are you standing and they're sitting? That can make people uneasy. But those are things that at that moment I didn't think of. And like Armando said, starting off with the wrong questions. I didn't ask her if she was okay. I just went to immediately what was an issue. Why are you running and crying? Why are you screaming and running around? So that's where we went wrong. I'm going to give the next part of that story as we move forward. So we have to take a chance to make a change. And that's supposed to move, but technology, it does what it wants to do. So, can your mental health change over time? Somebody else hit on it in what they said I did wrong. I didn't give her time. I just immediately jumped in with questions. Mental health can change over time. Someone experiencing poor mental health due to traumatic experiences, death, money issues. You give it enough time and things can change compared to a person that's mental health can change in a positive way. Learning a new skill, going on a vacation, going to a support group meeting. I know there's a lot of us right now that work 40-hour jobs or more and can definitely say, yes, I could use a vacation right now. I just need a recharge. I need to reset. Absolutely. How many people are okay with when bills hit and now your bank account is gone down and it's payday? You were excited that it's payday and you immediately looked at your statement and it's like, man, bills have hit already. It changes how you want to plan. So you might go from really happy to not so happy. So sometimes time is a big factor. In that situation with the young lady dealing with her, if I would have given her at least a few moments to breathe for her own self, process what's going on before I start to engage with questions, that could help the situation. Now, it took us 20 minutes before she said anything at all. And I'm standing there like an angry parent, repeatedly asking the same questions, getting more frustrated that she's not saying anything. That was another thing that I did wrong. So that's why I emphasize on time. Sometimes it could be a few minutes, it could be an hour, it could be days, weeks, even months. But your mental health will change over time and it can go either way. It can go from really good to not so good. It can go from not so good to really good. So you have to remember those things. So let's look at mental health and physical health and how they play together. So our mental health and physical health are equally important in our overall health. And I emphasize those words equally and overall on purpose. A lot of people I love to go to the gym. I go to the gym to make sure my body is in tip top shape. I make sure I eat healthy. But are you making sure that your mental health is in that same realm? Are you exercising the same way mentally that you need to? Or are you focused more so on one aspect? So we have to make sure that both sides to it, our brain as much as the rest of our body, has to be exercised just as much. Depression can physically lead to problems like diabetes, heart disease, and stroke. A lot of people think of mental health as, oh, you're diagnosed with something, you might take medicines for something. But a lot of times they don't think about how it can lead into other underlying issues that we may have. So we have to remember those things. And these can put you at risk for other mental health illnesses too. Go ahead, Connie.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if somebody is like obsessing over being physically healthy and eating right and all of that, maybe that's part of their mental health because that makes them feel better.
Hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as you have the balance. And we're going to talk about some of those ways to exercise that mental side of it too. So we know some of those physical attributes, the yogas, the meditation is more of a mental thing. For those that like to go on walks or running, there is your physical. For some people, their mental is, well, I like to listen to certain types of music to get myself into the right mode or the right mind frame. When I'm stressed out, I like to go and draw or color or paint. Or for adults, hey, I like a good an adult coloring book. Nothing wrong with that. But there will be more tips with that one as we move forward. So, next part of the story. So I just told you, I approached her wrong, didn't give her time. We are in the hallway for 20 minutes before she finally says anything at all. At this point, I have waved off every adult that has come to try to help. I got this. I'm big teacher. I'm good. I can handle one student in a hallway. That's not a problem. Anybody see a problem with that part? And you can just put one in the chat if you do, zero if you don't think there was an issue. I got all these people coming to give assistance, and I'm good. I got it. I got a couple people saying, yeah, that is a problem. It is. Because how do I know that maybe she doesn't have a good relationship with one of the other people that could have helped her a little bit sooner than I could? How do I know I wasn't the problem? I don't know. Because remember, we're sitting here for 20 minutes and we're getting nowhere. And there are people willing to assist, but I didn't want to turn over that power in that sense to ask for help. So yes, you're correct. That is an issue. How has the pandemic affected our mental health? Yes, I keep pausing the story on purpose. There's a reason. So in the chat, real quick, or unmute yourselves. What ways has the pandemic, COVID-19, affected our mental health? It could be you personally, it could be people that you know of, it could be people that you work with. What are some ways that it's affected us?
it caused a lot of people to become socially or like non-social. Like you just stop going. You're just isolation is what I want to say. You're isolated.
Absolutely. Yep, it's isolated people. So people's skills or the want to be around people has gone down. What other ways? I see some people in the chat. I like it. You can unmute too if you want. That is okay. People became paranoid. Yes, people have. More introverted. Absolutely.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jay.
Hi.
Hello.
So it raised a lot of questions for me. I'm not going to go into like a whole conspiracy theory thing, but like I worked at Jack in the Box in St. Louis, and we were the only restaurant that was open after Walmart shut down. We were open all night. So like we were kind of like a critical food point or whatever, however they want to call it. But it just, things happened, and it made me question how the processes of things, because there wasn't stuff that was making sense, you know? So I think I wasn't necessarily like mental health wise, it just really opened my mind to like what's really going on.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Yeah, in a situation like that, think about essential workers. For a lot of them, not knowing what's going to happen, imagine what they had to deal with, knowing that, well, my job is I have to go to work even during this time where I could get sick, I could potentially die. So things like that set in. For a lot of people, the isolation, the feelings of being alone led to major depression for a lot of people. And so there's a lot of
and then,
things.
Oh, I was just going to mention, like, you know, a lot of people were stuck at home with their kids too. And I don't know about everybody else, but that drove me nuts to just kind of stuck all day in the house. You can't go anywhere, can't do nothing. So, you know, I was just angry, frustrated, depressed, sad, lonely. Like the kids were feeling that too. They couldn't go to school, see their friends.
Absolutely. And all of those things are true feelings. And so we can't knock anyone that's come out of the pandemic, either now or when we started to reopen the country to where we could move about, that had those feelings or those thoughts. Those are real things that people were going to. But like you said, you're at home with the same people, or for some, the same person or the same animal, and that's it. And you don't have that interaction. So it's hard to get that out. We thought about kids who were not safe anymore. Yeah, there are a lot of kids that think about that, for kids that are in abusive households. Well, now I'm stuck here and can't get away. Houses that were kids that didn't have enough food. Yep. Those are all real things. And keep them coming. Keep them coming in the chat. We appreciate it. All of this is good insight. So let's look at the effects that it did have. So we had a lack of human interactions. Of course, we're shut down. We can't really interact with each other. Imagine being a police officer you've sworn an oath to protect and serve, and there's no one to protect and serve out on the streets anymore. Change in routine. For those that are used to waking up at 6, 7 in the morning to get kids ready or to get yourself ready to go to work. Well, now for a lot of people that didn't have the technological uh, policies and procedures in place, now you're waking up at 2 in the afternoon because you're up until 2 in the morning because there is no work. Or for kids, well, it's Fortnite and Madden video games until 6 a.m. and I'm gonna sleep all day. And when I wake up, it's 7 at night. That routine is
And
thrown off.
Yes, and the kids now, it's like the pandemic, they don't want to go outside, they don't want to do nothing because it's like they grew up doing TV and phones because that's all there was for them to do during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true.
And so we have to look at those things. We look at them now, and it's, for a lot of people, it's, oh, they're lazy. All they want to do is be on electronics. Well, for almost 2.5 years, that's what they became routine to. That's what they knew. The lack of outside activities. You really weren't going outside. There would be some that would decide I'm tired of being in the house, so I'm going to go do it, i.e., me, who would go out on his front porch and barbecue once a week. But that was just me, though. I wasn't around other people. But that was my get out of the house time. And then the change in eating habits. Now, I'm not going to ask anyone to reveal how bad they may have done in this area. I'll just say myself and a pint of ice cream every 2 days, I had to go and get another one. That's all I'm going to say. So things like that. Even some of the foods that we would normally go pick up when we would grocery shop, depending on what areas of the country they came from, they weren't accessible anymore. Or the prices were so high that we had to find other things that were cheaper or within our budget to be able to go and eat. And some of it was processed. A lot of it was probably processed or things that we don't normally think about eating. And so the pandemic really did a number on us mentally in a lot of different ways outside of just the isolation. It
And
did a lot for
physically,
us.
like gaining
Exactly.
weight.
Exactly. So we have to consider all of those things and by saying that, we have to give a little more grace right now. Even though we're what a year and a half into being back to quote unquote normal with the world right now, you still got to give a little grace because it takes time for some people to adjust. There have been some things that have happened in 2.5 years of COVID-19 that is going to take some time to get past. And for kids growing up in it, think about when they're our age, when they're in their 50s and 60s, their 70s and their 80s, the stories that they're going to be able to tell their grandkids and kids of, yeah, for 2 years, I didn't go to school. I went to school online. Well, what was that like? I slept through most of my classes. I'd stay up to 6, 7 in the morning playing video games, and then I'd sleep all day. That's going to be their stories now. I felt like it forced people to relearn their families and become closer. For some people, yes, they did. We did our family reunion virtually. It was an adjustment for a lot of our older family members that weren't as tech savvy, but we felt like, hey, we'll do it and try it rather than letting this year go by and we miss our family reunion. A lot of people, they didn't get that option or they didn't have that resource to do that. So we have to, like I said, give that grace and remember those things. All right.
Well, and a lot of people, a lot of family members during COVID. So it's like, where you had a family of 15 during COVID, now you might be down to 11, or, 4 or 5 might have just died that year. So that just,
Hmm. Absolutely. And that is a very true sentiment. The people that were lost, for a lot of people, they didn't come out of it. And imagine how that feels to for the grieving process to be able to go through a funeral and see that and your brain starts to accept that we've lost this person. During COVID, you weren't going to funerals. So a lot of
well,
people
yeah, I was
didn't
going to say,
get that. So,
Yeah, and I mean, when you lost people during, I think you all just said this, but I lost somebody during COVID and I couldn't even go to their funeral.
mhm,
So that was really hurtful.
exactly. And so those are things we have to think about. So we know that there's problems, but what are the solutions? And before I get to the solutions, let me give you the end of the story. So 20 minutes go by. She finally decides to talk to me. I've waved off everyone. Yeah, I know. I'm still feeling shame because I know bad job, bad job. But again, years ago, I know better now. So come to find out, once she finally is okay with talking to me, we're able to talk, and she let me know, oh, I ran because that day in particular we had a substitute janitor, not our normal guy, but just a substitute that was there. He's on the other side of the room. He resembled her mother's boyfriend who had abused her. It wasn't him, he just looked like it. So from the glance or the angle that she had of him, she instantly was triggered and had to flee. She had to take flight. She had to get away. And then all she could do once she was away is her brain went into shutdown mode. She froze. She couldn't do anything until her brain was at a level to where she could calm down, get herself back together, process things. So it wasn't anything that directly at that moment was done or said to her. It was a memory. And there was nothing that I could have did. Now, all of those things that we've already pointed out that I did wrong probably didn't help. Standing over her, not giving her time, pressuring her with questions, being a man. I waved off multiple staff members that could have helped that were female that may have been able to get to her a little sooner. So all of these things, sometimes when we're trying to be helpful, we have to also remember sometimes your help can also hurt because of who you are, what you look like, the perfume or the cologne you have on, the tone of your voice, how you approach. All these things we have to try to remember. Is it going to be perfect? No, not at all. But there are things that we can do. So here are some solutions. Ways to improve your mental health. These are just some, not all. Exercise, yoga, there's that physical activity part again. Learning a new skill mentally. Some people like the challenge of learning something and they feel a boost of in their self-esteem when they accomplish a new skill or a new task. They complete a class that was hard. They complete a crossword puzzle. Read a good book. A lot of people like books. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're a comic book person and that works for you, go get a comic book. Look at the pictures. Make yourself laugh. Be happy about it. Referring to COVID-19, getting vaccinated, whether that's the flu vaccine, whether that's COVID vaccine, whether that's RSV, knowing that you have that layer of protection built up in your body can put your mind at ease during the time where case numbers are high for infections and things like that. Change the layout in a room. It doesn't have to be anything dramatic. You might just decide, hey, I'm gonna move this lamp over to that side. I'm gonna turn the angle of this chair so it faces this way instead of this way. That might work for you. You might be a person that every 6 months you have to rearrange your entire room. That's okay. Whatever works for you works for you. Support groups. If you can't find any that you know of in the community, I guarantee there's some on Facebook. There are plenty of groups that advertise, hey, we're here, and they use social media. So looking for those things that have people with common interests or common, I don't want to say issues, but common challenges. Sometimes being around them to hear what they're going through and how they're overcoming can be a boost to your confidence to know that I can do it too. Drawing and painting, and also therapy. There's nothing wrong with therapy. They are paid to listen to what you have going on and to give you advice to help you. A lot of people, especially in the African American community, we look at therapy as a stigma. What happens in this house stays in this house. We don't need to go talk to anybody. Well, that's wrong. We've all been sitting in the same house together for 2.5 years. We know what our issue is, but none of us have the solution. Let's go talk to somebody that does. So consider those things. And always remember, we're in this together. We saw the statistics. And so that lets you know it's not just you. It is not just a one-off situation. There are other people around too. And so we all need some resources. So here's some resources. We have the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. You can be anywhere in the world, and those numbers will work. They can talk you through mental health crisis. They can talk you through a suicide issue. You can even text in what's going on. More locally, you have the Missouri Crisis Line. They service Jackson County, which a lot of us are in, or if you're in Platte County or Clay County, they service you as well, or Johnson County. KVC Behavioral Health is here, and they're out off of East 23rd Street. And then Comprehensive Mental Health Services. Again, these are some resources. These are not all of the resources that we have. But you want to make sure that you can take a screenshot of this. If you want, let me know in the chat and I can send you a copy of this presentation. That way you have those resources on hand. There's also the number for 988. That is the mental health hotline. You can call that number for yourself. You can call it for a family member or friend, anyone that's around you that's going through a mental health crisis. They will walk you through exactly what to say and exactly what to do to help in that situation. And depending on the situation, they can also send help to you. So it's not just you're going to tell and they hang up and you wait for hours for people to respond. No, they will stay on the line with you as much as you need to help you in those situations. And so that's 988. You can also check out the website, Let's Win KC. That website was created by Blue Symphony, who was one of our contractors for the Health IQ program. And that website is specific to mental health. So they have resources, they have contact information um, for mental health professionals to help you out. They have resources for things that you can do. There's also tons of information that's on that website. So check it out. Again, that's letswinkc.com. So that concludes this presentation over understanding mental health. If you have more questions, comments, concerns, and you want to reach out to us, that is our email here at the health department. You can just email healthiq@kcmo.org. And I'll also make sure that you have that information. So jumping back just a couple things. I hope that that presentation has been useful to you, informational. Again, you can always put your questions, comments, concerns in the chat real quick. What I need everyone to do very quickly is scan that QR code for a quick survey to let me know, hey, how am I doing? What information and feedback you have so that we can better provide information to the community. If you don't have a device to be able to scan it, I am putting the link to it in the chat right now. You can just click that link and take it. I promise you, it is short. It is not long at all, but please give me your open, honest feedback. That's how we improve what it is that we do here. And then our last announcement. So today is day 2. Tomorrow will be day 3 of our 4 days of Health Miss, and we will be talking about time management, and that will be presented by Miss Kamisha Moore. She's the Director of Operations at the Gig Alliance here in Kansas City, Missouri. She's a phenomenal presenter. She's presented here for one of our workshops over project management, and so I felt like it would be great to have her come in and talk about um, time management, since that's right up her alley doing project management. So that's tomorrow at 2 o'clock from 2 to 3. You can use this exact same link that you're on now for tomorrow's presentation. So hopefully we will see you all there. Thank you all for the nice words in the chat. I appreciate that a lot. But again, make sure you please do that survey for us real quick. I'm putting it back up there so you can see it, screenshot it. The link is also in the chat right now. And if there are no other questions, I'm gonna give you back a few minutes on your day. We appreciate you, and we hope to see you all tomorrow at 2 o'clock for time management. Thanks again, and we appreciate you.
Thank you.